Hello, friends. It's Chapo.
That was a pussy,
Um,
man.
Yeah.
but no,
Bitch.
I just I want to bring up the connection to the Moonies is fascinating to me because like apparently this guy's mom gave away all her money, and Shinzo Abe personally and his party were very involved in the Moonies. But the thing is, there are so many American politicians that are in with the Moonies too. I mean,
Yep.
one of my one of my favorite videos of all time is George H.W. Bush, Poppy himself, calling in to the anniversary of the Washington Times, and he gives like,
Yes.
and it's like a and it is like, and then the Reverend Moon has a video message as well, and it's a grand ballroom in D.C. filled with many of the luminaries of the Republican Party, and George H.W. Bush calls in. He's like, he's doing a little shtick about himself, and he's like, I like the Washington Times, no bias, wouldn't be prudent.
Normally, when I think of the Washington Beltway press corps, I think of, well, not going to say it, wouldn't be prudent. But when I think of the Washington Times, I think of a publication that has brought much needed balance to the way Washington is covered these days.
Doing things like that. And then the Reverend Moon addresses the ballroom, and he starts talking about how free must be banned.
Absolutely centered on God, and free is centered on Satan. Historically, world literature and media have often stimulated free sex. But from now on, you literary figures and journalists should lead the way to prevent free. Free should completely disappear.
And once we can control free, he goes, none can oppose me.
Therefore, everyone is one world has opposed the Reverend Moon. Therefore, now nobody can oppose me.
And like it's just this ballroom of like DC conservatives looking nervous, sort of like nervously side-eyeing each other. And I looked this up. This is a New York Times article from 2004. A crowning at the Capitol creates a stir. As a shining symbol of democracy, the United States Capitol is not ordinarily a place where coronations occur. So news that the Reverend Sung Myung Moon, the eccentric and exceedingly wealthy Korean-born businessman, donned a crown in a Senate office building and declared himself the Messiah while members of Congress watched is causing a bit of a stir. One congressman, Representative Danny K. Davis, Democrat of Illinois, wore white gloves and
Former
carried
Black Panther.
Really?
Danny Davis, not from my neighborhood like next to mine. Danny K. Davis, former Black Panther, who sold out like everything he used to believe in to be like, actually, I agree with everything that the Democratic Leadership Council says. I love Danny Davis. So a notable, horrible Illinois politician.
Wore white gloves and carried a pillow holding one of two ornate gold crowns that were placed on the heads of Mr. Moon and his wife, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, at the ceremony, which took place March 23rd, and capped a reception billed as a Peace Awards banquet. Mr. Davis says he held the wife's crown and was a bit surprised by Mr. Moon's Messiah remarks, which were delivered in Korean but accompanied by a written translation. In them, he said emperors, kings, and presidents had declared to all heaven and earth that Reverend Sung Myung Moon is none other than humanity's savior, Messiah, returning Lord, and true parent.
Okay, that's
That's
kind of a serve.
I mean, it's true. I mean, well, from America to Japan, the Moonies, they roll deep,
Yeah.
but one true Ronin was able to stand up to them.
It's true. But like it's like not the connection goes beyond just like him schmoozing with all these politicians. Like the Mooney network in Asia is like part of a general intelligence apparatus around containing communism there, Uh it exhibits soft power in the form of its ownership of media. The Reverend Moon in the 80s, he spent like, I think they broke the record for budget uh on this movie about the Incheon invasion in the Korean War that had this all-star cast. I think Gregory Peck was in it, and it was this huge boondoggle and an infamously terrible film. But yeah, like that was all part of a propaganda campaign around supporting, the American and Japanese capital there in Asia. So it's it, it's you could really consider this blowback.
Absolutely. And like I've seen like a certain commentary on the kind of like the nationalist right, who of course love Abe and what he represents. But the thing is, like, like they're comparing him to Mishima, and they're saying, like, that this was a glorious death and martyrdom,
Yeah.
which is sort of confounded by the fact that he didn't want to die or know he was going to die.
Yeah, that's kind of ruins it. You have to
Like,
be doing it on purpose.
like Mishima did it on purpose. Like, like he gutted himself in that building and then had his head cut off.
Yeah. And it's like he didn't really think that he was going to successfully overthrow the fucking government. He knew it was going to fuck up. He was prepared. It was all a ritual to get to that point he was not like, "Hey, I'm going to give this speech in front of these yokels and then I'm going to, have dinner and then get my crank pulled and go to bed." No, and then boom, blown up. That's not the spirit of sacrifice that you're supposed to be in.
Well, and then commit, seppuku, which has got to be like, that's the most committed way to kill yourself. I mean, you got because like in the traditional way of doing it, you have a second to deliver the killing stroke, but you can only be granted the sweet release of having your head sliced off if you've fully turned the blade across your stomach and completely gutted yourself.
I've read some of the stuff that people have committed seppuku over, and I kind of think they like overdid it.
Commitment to the bit.
Like there was a guy who was like the shogun's uncle or some shit, and he committed seppuku because the shogun had like bad manners. He committed seppuku so the shogun would like take his job more seriously, and in that case it's like, okay, you just wanted to kill yourself.
Committing seppuku because you don't like the floral arrangements at the latest state banquet.
That was it. It's like, yeah, you're just suicidal. You're just like picking something at random.
But yeah, like, I mean, to kill yourself in that way is God. I mean, that is really showing commitment. I mean, gotta hand it to the Japanese. They really do elevate cruelty and violence to quite a high degree of art and aesthetic principle.
Well, like, I mean, if you make that one of the only acceptable forms of suicide, then it worked. Look how low their suicide rates are compared to ours.
Well, so it's one of those things, like recording last week, sometimes world events, screw with the show schedule, but, R.I.P. Bozo, R.I.P. Shinzo Abe.
R.I.P. Shinzo. He wanted to be just like us.
We will miss him, and it's going to be very difficult to continue doing the show and our fall tour, but without his guidance. But I think he will be watching over all of us and continuing to provide, like I said, spiritual, honorable leadership from beyond. But his example will guide us in the future. All right, so let's return to stateside. Let's return to what's going on in America these days, and I suppose one thing we've talked about that on the show before that has I guess an update to this story. I mean, guys, I don't know. This comes as a shock to me.